Before her death in 2023, Tina Turner made a chilling confession that sent quiet shockwaves through the music industry. A statement so raw, so unexpected, it left those closest to Motown's golden era scrambling for damage control. Tina Turner, Queen of Rock and Roll, said about Diana Ross, "She always wanted the crown, but she never understood the price I paid to wear it." A single sentence, barely above a whisper, yet laced with decades of rivalry, bitterness, and survival. It wasn't just a jab, it was a judgment. And by the end of this story, you'll understand why Tina felt the need to say it, and why Diana Ross never responded. Tina Turner and Diana Ross are names etched in the bedrock of American music. Both trailblazers, both survivors, both symbols of black female excellence during a time when the industry was ruthless, sexist, and cold. But behind the carefully crafted smiles and polished performances was a bitter undercurrent of competition and contradiction. Tina, forged in violence and rebirth. Diana, molded by Motown machinery into America's sweetheart. From the outside, they were two queens in different kingdoms, but inside the industry, their stories collided in ways the public never truly saw. Before she was Tina Turner, she was Anna Mee Bullock, abandoned by her parents, shuffled between relatives, and finally lured into a life of showbiz by Ike Turner, who turned her name into a brand but her life into a prison. By the time the world saw Tina dancing in mini dresses with explosive energy, they didn't see the bruises. They didn't hear the screams behind closed doors. And when she finally broke free in 1976, leaving with nothing but her name, she had to rebuild her empire from ashes. She clawed her way back, not with industry favors, but by singing in cabarets, appearing on TV variety shows, and taking whatever gig she could get. In 1984, Private Dancer finally catapulted her back into superstardom, but that return came at a cost. And while Tina was surviving, Diana Ross was thriving, or so it seemed. Born in Detroit, Diana was discovered by Motown's Berry Gordy and transformed from a teenage lead singer of the Supremes into an icon of elegance, grace, and crossover appeal. She was placed at the center of everything, Motown's first lady, the industry's prototype of a black female star who could appeal to white America without making waves. But behind that glamour was a tightly controlled image. Diana didn't just climb the ladder, she had it handed to her. Berry Gordy, the founder of Motown, became romantically involved with her. Their affair led to the birth of their daughter, Rhonda. Even though Robert Silverstein raised her, industry insiders always knew who Rhonda's real father was. That blurred line between love, business, and favoritism created rifts within Motown, especially among former Supremes members like Florence Ballard and Mary Wilson, both of whom felt pushed aside so Diana could shine. But what does this have to do with Tina Turner? Everything. You see, the entertainment industry in the 60s and 70s wasn't built to sustain more than one black female superstar at a time. It was a zero-sum game. When one woman rose, another had to fall, and Diana Ross had become the chosen one. That status wasn't just about talent, it was about pliability. Diana was polished, controlled, and aligned with powerful men who shaped her image. Tina was raw, unpredictable, and defiant. For years, their paths rarely crossed publicly, but privately, Tina watched. According to a 1997 interview with Rolling Stone, Tina confessed that she admired Diana's success but couldn't relate to her journey. "She had a straight line to the top," Tina said. "Mine was crooked, dangerous, bloody." And that quote wasn't just poetic, it was pointed. Because throughout the late 70s and early 80s, rumors swirled that Diana Ross used her proximity to Berry Gordy to block other black female artists from rising too fast. Martha Reeves of the Vandellas once told Jet magazine that she was pulled off promotional tour to make room for Diana's solo career. Mary Wilson's autobiography detailed how internal sabotage tore the Supremes apart, always to Diana's benefit. Was Tina one of those women frozen out? In 1981, Diana Ross made headlines by securing a $20 million deal with RCA Records, the most lucrative contract for a female artist at the time. That same year, Tina Turner was struggling to book shows in Vegas and Europe. She hadn't yet found a label willing to take a chance on her comeback. Multiple executives turned her down. They claimed she was too old, too black, and too dangerous for pop stardom. But privately, there were whispers that some within Motown, still connected to Diana's camp, had quietly advised against investing in Tina. Why? Because her return could disrupt the narrative Diana had spent decades building, that she was the only black woman who could rule pop and soul with sophistication and grace. And then came the unspoken betrayal. In 1985, both women were booked for We Are the World, the USA for Africa benefit single. It was the biggest gathering of musical talent in the world. Michael Jackson, Lionel Richie, Bruce Springsteen, Cyndi Lauper, and yes, both Tina Turner and Diana Ross. But if you study the behind-the-scenes footage carefully, you'll notice something off. Diana arrives early, hugging everyone in sight, smiling, performing for the camera. Tina arrives later, flanked by assistants, focused and quieter. The two women barely interact, not a single embrace, not a shared laugh. Even when they sing their lines back-to-back in the final chorus, their eyes never meet. Quincy Jones, the producer of the track, later joked that he had to balance too many egos that night. But insiders say the tension between Diana and Tina was so thick, it reshaped how the recording schedule was arranged. Tina, already recovering from industry exile, kept her distance. Diana, still reigning, pretended there was no issue. But the coldness wasn't mutual ignorance, it was history boiling under the surface. And history doesn't just disappear, especially when Tina finally roared back. With Private Dancer, Tina sold over 10 million copies worldwide. She became the oldest female solo artist to score a #1 hit on the Billboard Hot 100 with What's Love Got to Do with It. She won 3 Grammys in 1985 alone, and suddenly the industry that once ignored her came crawling back. But there was a price. At one industry gala in 1986, both Diana Ross and Tina Turner were scheduled to perform. Organizers seated them apart intentionally. According to a report in Variety, when Diana was asked about Tina's comeback, she offered a smile and said, "There's room for everyone at the top." A quote that sounds generous, until you know that just weeks earlier, Diana had declined to record a duet with Tina for a televised special, citing creative differences. But it wasn't just about music anymore. In 1993, the biopic What's Love Got to Do with It premiered. It exposed Ike Turner's abuse, but more importantly, it cemented Tina as a survivor, something Diana Ross never publicly identified with. And that difference became more glaring. Diana Ross built her image on elegance. Tina Turner rebuilt hers on resilience. One was an untouchable diva, the other a phoenix. And as the years passed, Tina's legacy grew in depth and darkness. She became more revered for what she overcame than what she sang. Diana, meanwhile, found herself caught in controversies, family drama, onstage arrests, lukewarm albums, and most notably, a 2000 backstage incident at a London concert where she allegedly threw a fit over not being billed as the final act above other divas. And then came the final curtain. In her later years, Tina retreated from the public eye, moving to Switzerland, marrying Erwin Bach, and eventually becoming a Swiss citizen. Her final interviews became more reflective, more honest. In a rare 2018 conversation with Oprah Winfrey, Tina was asked about other black female artists she admired. She named Beyoncé, she named Rihanna, she named Patti LaBelle. But when asked directly about Diana Ross, Tina paused. Then she said, "We were different women. Very different journeys. She was chosen. I had to survive." That statement struck a chord because it echoed a sentiment whispered for decades, that Diana Ross was protected by the system, while Tina was devoured by it and still lived. And in the months before her death, Tina's private letters and voice recordings, many of which are set to be archived at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, include one last message. A message that has not yet been fully released to the public, but according to sources close to her estate, contains a final reflection. Some women build walls around themselves. Others tear them down with their bare hands. I never hated Diana. I just knew we were never walking the same road. That sentence, full of sorrow and sharp clarity, may be the most honest take on their parallel legacies. Because when Tina Turner said, "She always wanted the crown, but she never understood the price I paid to wear it," it wasn't just about music. It was about the difference between surviving an empire and being sheltered by it. But even in death, Tina Turner's legacy cast a longer shadow than the Motown playbook ever anticipated. After her passing in May 2023, tributes poured in from every corner of the globe, artists, presidents, world leaders. Beyoncé called her the epitome of power. Mick Jagger said she was a source of inspiration. But Diana Ross, silence. For days, there was no formal statement, no tribute, no performance in her honor. And when she finally did release a tweet, a brief, one-line message that read, "Rest in peace, Tina Turner." A legend and true survivor, fans and insiders noticed the distinct lack of emotion. It wasn't warm, it wasn't personal, it was distant, almost obligatory. And for many, it confirmed what had been whispered about for decades, that the tension between them never healed, that the rivalry remained, quietly burning beneath decades of glamour and stage lights. The media didn't pick it apart right away, but music insiders did. Several former Motown producers anonymously admitted to Billboard that Ross and Turner were never close, and that it wasn't because of diva behavior. It was because they were products of two completely different music philosophies. Diana was always the face of image control. Tina, she was truth in motion. And truth, in an industry built on illusion, is threatening. Especially when it comes from a woman who refused to play by the rules and survived anyway. What complicated their relationship even further was how each was weaponized against the other by the very system they inhabited. In the late 80s, industry execs began whispering that Tina was becoming more rock than soul, which conveniently opened space for Diana to reclaim R&B territory. Meanwhile, Diana's inability to connect with younger audiences made her legacy feel stuck, timeless but unmoving, while Tina's exploded with each new generation. HBO documentaries, Broadway musicals, biopics, viral clips. Tina wasn't just surviving, she was transcending, and the public finally was seeing her full story, a story Diana had spent her life avoiding. Because to tell her story truthfully would mean confronting the darker parts of Motown's past, its favoritism, its erasures, its punishments for those who didn't conform. And Diana, she conformed so well it made her untouchable, but also unknowable. Meanwhile, Tina Turner became the face of reclamation. Her life, every ugly, brutal, triumphant corner of it, was laid bare, and instead of diminishing her, it made her immortal. Even her health battles became public tales of endurance: stroke, kidney failure, intestinal cancer. Her 2018 kidney transplant, donated by her husband Erwin Bach, became the symbol of a love story that no one believed she'd ever get to have. She endured, and the world rallied around her. She wasn't just a singer anymore, she was a symbol. And that symbol clashed with Diana Ross's enduring mystique, because Diana, to this day, remains a mystery even to her closest collaborators. Stories of diva demands, power plays, and backstage coldness are easy to find, but so are moments of grace, mentorship, and quiet generosity. The problem is, no one can ever tell which Diana they're going to get. Was she a woman protecting herself from an industry that chewed people up? Or was she the product of privilege within that system, unable to relate to those who bled for their freedom? Tina Turner never had that ambiguity. Her pain was public, her strength was visible, and perhaps that's what made her final statement about Diana so haunting. Because when Tina said, "She always wanted the crown, but she never understood the price I paid to wear it," she wasn't just throwing shade. She was offering a warning about image versus identity, about surviving versus performing survival. In 2021, just 2 years before her death, Tina sat down for one of her final interviews. The conversation turned to legacy. She was asked what she wanted young artists to remember about her. Her voice, frail but fierce, responded that you can lose everything and still come back stronger, that the truth is always louder than fame. The interviewer asked if she felt that truth had cost her anything. She replied without hesitation, "Yes, it cost me friendships. It cost me allies, it cost me peace, but it gave me freedom." And then in a moment that stunned the production crew, she paused and added, "Some of us were never meant to be friends. We were built for different fights." When pressed on what she meant, Tina reportedly waved the question away, but everyone on set understood. That was about Diana, about the silence, the distance, the two icons who defined generations of music, but never shared the same space with joy. What's even more compelling is how the industry framed them, sometimes against their will. In the 70s and 80s, magazines regularly asked Tina about Diana, sometimes as bait, sometimes out of genuine curiosity. Tina always took the high road, but she rarely praised. In one 1985 interview with Ebony, she was asked what she thought of Diana's performance in Lady Sings the Blues. Tina's response: "She looked beautiful, but Billie Holiday was a deep, wounded woman." You can't play that from the surface. It was subtle, but clear. Tina was implying that Diana didn't understand pain the way she did, that she couldn't perform what she hadn't lived. In Diana, she rarely spoke about Tina at all. Some saw that as pettiness. Others saw it as insecurity. Because Diana Ross, for all her accolades, never had the comeback story Tina did. She never had to rebuild from nothing. She was always rising, yes, but on a road paved by powerful men and calculated branding. When her records didn't sell, her image kept her afloat. But when Tina was cast out, she built a new kingdom. Without Gordy, without Motown, without compromise. It wasn't until decades later that Diana Ross began to feel the shift. When the Tina Turner musical debuted on Broadway and London's West End, Diana wasn't invited to the opening nights. Not as a guest, not as a tribute, and fans noticed. Because the musical wasn't just entertainment, it was validation. It told the story of a woman who had everything taken from her and came back on her own terms. And whether Diana admitted it or not, that legacy was beginning to eclipse hers. Which brings us to the final moment, the one that shocked even those who thought they'd heard it all. Shortly after Tina's death, her estate revealed that she had recorded hours of voice memos in the years leading up to her passing. These tapes, raw, emotional, often rambling, were originally intended for a memoir project. Some will remain private, but excerpts were played at a closed memorial attended by close friends, collaborators, and family. According to attendees, one particular quote brought the room to silence. "I forgave a lot of people, Ike, the industry, myself, but I never understood Diana. Maybe I wasn't meant to. We were mirrors that refused to reflect each other. I sang from scars. She sang from dreams. Both are beautiful, but only one will survive the test of truth. That final line, only one will survive the test of truth, felt less like a judgment and more like an epitaph. Tina wasn't erasing Diana's legacy. She was separating hers from it, drawing the line, not to start a fight, but to end the illusion that their paths were equal. Because when the industry tells the story of Diana Ross, it tells a story of polish, power, and positioning. But when it tells Tina's story, it speaks of grit, glory, and rebirth. And that difference, that's why Tina Turner's words matter, why they resonate, why they hit so hard, even from beyond the grave. So was Diana Ross ever the villain? Not necessarily. But in Tina's world, where truth came soaked in blood, silence was a form of complicity. And for over 50 years, Diana Ross chose silence. In that silence, Tina Turner rose. And when she finally spoke, just before the end, she didn't spit venom. She dropped clarity. She always wanted the crown, but she never understood the price I paid to wear it. And now, with Tina gone and Diana still standing, the question remains, what will history remember more, the crown or the cost? Comment your thoughts below, and stick around, because next week's story pulls back the curtain on the one artist Prince warned not to trust in his final days. You won't believe who it was.